Good morning. I am Mimi Bitson, and I'm delighted to talk to you, Al Binder. Tell me a little bit about when you were born, where you were born, and your family.
Well, I was born in Yugoslavia, Bijeljina, Bosnia. My family existed of 4 siblings and my parents.
And what were their names?
The oldest sister was Anna. Then was my older brother, Ignaz. And then my other sister, Maria. And then my youngest brother, who was born later during the war, his name was Siegfried.
And what were the names of your parents?
My mother's name was Maria, and my dad's name was Johann.
And what did your parents do in this little town in Yugoslavia?
My dad was a blacksmith. He owned his shop there in a street called Račanska ulica. That's a main street in Bijeljina. And he worked there. He had every year, he had apprentices in his shop, so he was teaching and working and was very busy. The business was going pretty good at that time.
And when exactly were you born? What year?
Exactly?
Yes.
I was born in Bijeljina, Bosnia,
And what date?
1936, September the 24th.
Thank you. And what did your mother do?
She was a homemaker. She had enough work to do.
She really did. So when you were about 5 years old, tell us what happened.
All the war was on, and the Germans took off Yugoslavia. It took them only 2 weeks to take the whole country. And at the end of their existence in Yugoslavia, the word was out that they were backing up, leaving the country. But at the same time, he says, the one soldier said it was very, very dangerous to stay here. We are leaving. Anybody with a German name, even just on the name itself, if it's German, you better come along with us because we are not guaranteeing your life.
So they told you to leave Yugoslavia and go with them, and this was in 1941.
Yes. Yeah.
So what did your family decide to do?
Well, they decided to go to Germany to save the family and go to Germany. My dad's oldest sister, my aunt, they decided to stay. And my uncle had a shop that he was making headstones. And right during the occupation, the Germans came and they looked at their headstones, and anything with a German name, they smashed the stones. They didn't ask who it was and how much it cost. They just took the hammer and smashed it.
So when you decided to leave, tell us about how you left. What did you travel on to travel into Germany?
Well, we went to the railroad station, and then we got on a train. And that's the first time I rode a train. I was a little fellow.
You were about 5 years old.
Right, I was 5. And I got to, everybody was standing by the windows and looking out, and I couldn't do it. So I took my backpack, put it down, and I stepped on it so I could get a little taller. I could look outside.
And where did your family travel to?
Well, we traveled through the northern part of Germany, around, and then we came to the border of Poland. And there, my dad was stationed at the railroad.
And what was the name of the town?
It was Zakopane.
Zakopane.
And my dad was stationed there as a blacksmith to repair locomotives. And that was his duty there.
And what was life like for you in Zakopane? How did you and your brother, you said you used to play?
We played in the backyard in summer. We played around and horsed around. Then in winter he made skis. He made like skis, ice skates or skis, whatever you want to call them. a couple of boards and put some wiring underneath there for tracks. And that's all we played.
And life was pretty normal for you as children, but some things were very not normal. You said you noticed trains coming through with people in them, men.
No, there was a convoy coming. Convoy of semi trailers. You know, those open boxcar army trucks, and they were filled with men. And they stopped by our house. I don't know for what reason, but they did. And my brother and me, we went closer and closer and looked there, and they were begging for bread, something to eat. And they had all kinds of toys made out of wood. And they say, hey, we give you this here, get us some bread.
And you knew that these men were Jewish men.
And then we saw that they all had stars on there, and they were Jewish people.
So they would ask you, they would say, I have this toy. If I give you this toy, you bring me some bread.
Yes, that's what they were trying to trade it.
Sure.
You know,
And so did
to
you
make
go
us
get them
happy.
bread?
And then my brother and me, we ran home to get some bread, and we got bread, and we came back, the trucks were gone.
And you said later you told your mother, and she was quite frightened.
Yes, my mother was really upset. She says, be careful, because you don't know whom you're gonna see there. It could be the enemy disguised as a German, you know. So we had to be careful and just let everybody be alone, you know.
So then in about 1944, it came time to leave Zakopane. How did that happen when you left? Why did you decide to leave?
Well, my dad was working at the railroad, and that was about a good half a mile away from the house. We lived in a government house, and it was a two-story home, and we lived in there. And my dad, every morning he went to work. In the evening he would come back. And one morning he went to work, and he's coming running, and he said to my mother, pack everything, pack the kids, dress them up, get the best clothes, get the new shoes and everything. She says, why? She says, the railroad man said, this is the last transportation we're gonna get. If we're not getting on it, we're gonna stay behind. And my mother quickly boxed up everything, put it in suitcases. And my dad was making crates. So everybody took something, but what they could carry. She put bread in my school backpack. She put bread in there, so we have something to eat. And we got to the station. There was a train coming, and there was an open boxcar train. A lot of cars.
And this was in winter time.
That was in winter, yes. And we got on it, and there was so much noise, and hundreds or thousands of people were there.
Now, who got on the train of your family?
It was my mother and the four of us.
And
We
what
got
did your
on
dad
there.
decide to
And
do?
my dad had to stay behind
Okay.
because he was afraid if he leaves his post, they're going to get to him and shoot him because he called it deserting, you know. So he was afraid to leave. And then my mother and my dad, I heard him say, we're going to meet at Grandma's house. Whatever happens, we get separated. This is where we're going to be. Whoever gets there first, wait for the other.
And it
We're
was
going to
your
get
mother's
there.
mother. So your
My mother's mother, my grandma.
Yes. So what was it like on that open box car in winter?
Well, it was dirty. It was smoky. And the night we traveled and we saw airplanes coming and their cannons were blasting at them, but none of them got hit. And the train would stop. They find out why did the train stop. Well, the tracks were bombed, so you had to back up, take a different route, and that was then this one was and it took us a long time to get to the next city. And every time the train stopped, the young mothers with infants, they were screaming, "Nurse, nurse, please help, help! My baby is sick." And the babies were sick and was no food, no clothing to keep them warm, so they would freeze to death or they get sick and they die. What are you going to do? They threw him overboard and just kept on going to save their own life. The daddy is dead, but there's no help. You know.
And your sister had a really difficult
And
time on the train.
yes, my sister was, and she had a frostbite on her right foot. Two of the toes on the right side, they were frostbitten.
And this was Maria?
It was Maria. And she says, oh, mommy, my foot hurts, my foot hurts. And she says, let me see where. And then she took her shoe off, and there it was all black, the toes. And at that time, the train was slowing down and stopping. And the lady was next to us, we didn't know her. She left, and she forgot something in the package. And my sister Maria says, Mommy, look, the lady forgot something over here. And my mother grabbed it, and he says, hey, ma'am, you forgot something. And she did not turn around. She just kept on going, got off the train, and disappeared. You know.
What was in, what did she left behind?
Then my mother, they looked at what was behind in the package. She had some nice warm shoes and a muff, a fur muff. So my mother says, Maria, put those shoes on. That's going to help you so you can walk or keep your feet warm. And she says, but they're so big, you know. He says, don't worry about the size. Just put them on. They're going to keep your feet warm. And the muff we shared. We stuck our hands in the kids and kept warm that way. You know.
So that really got you through that
Yes, and during the stops, my mother always remembered that we had to change the position of the train, not to go north, go west. Because my grandma's house was more west than was north. We almost passed it. So we turned around, we got a different train, and we got on in a railroad station, and there were a lot of people in the railroad station, mostly German soldiers. Where they all came from, I don't know, but there was a lot of officers.
And what town did you finally travel to?
Oh, we traveled to Braunschweig. I don't recall the names.
But the town that your grandmother lived, where did you?
Oh, that was Litzmannstadt. No.
And what was it
There
like?
we were trying to get to it. And my mother went forward and she asked, how to get to Litzmannstadt. And all the soldiers, when they saw us coming, they say, oh, let the mother with the brood through, please, make room. Because I was the smallest. I was holding my mother by her skirt. My older sister was holding my hand. My brother was holding her hand. And my older sister was the oldest. She was at the end of us. And that's how we traveled. Don't let go, Right. And then the soldiers, make room. Here comes the mother with the brood, make room. And she was holding my younger brother, who was only 7 months old. She was holding him on her arm. And the waiter was coming through, and he had a plate on his hands. And there was a lot of sausages, and everything was going through he says, please make room. And he was going to the office where the officers were. And my younger brother just reached and got a piece of sausage off it. And he started chewing on it. And my mother was scared. She says, oh no, they're going to shoot me for that. She says, I don't know. And the officer says, he says, ma'am, in German, he says, don't worry about it. It's only a little baby. He doesn't know any better. Just let it go. We'll forget it. Don't worry about it. And that's how they let us go.
So when you got to your grandmother's, to Lippmannstadt, tell about the apartment where you stayed, what it was like, and how many people were there.
Well, there was a 2-room apartment. And there was about 15, 16 of us all together. And we stayed there overnight and trying to make a living while we came. But mainly was trying to get some food,
And meantime, what about your dad? What did he do?
My dad, he stayed behind, he says. I went to the next morning, when you guys were gone, I went to the railroad station to report for work. I got there's nobody there. Oh, I was there all by myself. He says the offices, everything was upside down, the papers all over on the floor and everything. And here comes a locomotive. He's squeaking and stops, and he says, John, get on here. We're going. He said, there's nothing behind us. If you don't get on it, forget it. So he dropped everything, jumped on it, and he came. And then he comes to my grandma's house. How he did it, well, God knows. You know. He comes and he knocks on the door, and one of my aunts looks at the door to the window. She says, "A Russian soldier."
Because what was he wearing?
He was wearing his railroad uniform, which was, when he was all dressed up, he looked like a Russian officer, with the cap and an emblem on it and everything. But there was the only difference is that the emblem had a real red dot. That was the only difference, because the Russians, they had a sickle with a hammer and only a red dot in it. So they knew that was a German railroad worker.
So your mother's sister thought this was a
So
Russian officer.
my aunt said that was a Russian soldier. And my mother looks, he says, no, let him in. That's my husband. That's John, let him in. And then everybody, oh, dad, you know.
So quite a reunion.
Oh, yes. And the next day my uncle comes home. He was only 15 years old. He comes and he's got a big bundle under his arm. He says, Adam, what have you got there? My mother asked him. Oh, he says, I got a uniform. He says, tomorrow morning I have to put the uniform on and report to the station there. She says, oh, yeah? She says, aren't you kind of young for that? Oh, I have to go. I'm big enough. I have to go.
So he signed up to fight with the Germans.
So he had to go, like it or not. So he comes over and says, what you got? He says, I got my uniform here. He says, without that, I can't go no place. So he comes in the house and spends the night with us. And my mother hides his uniform.
Your mother hid it.
Mm-hmm. She hides it on him. And in the morning, he looks for his uniform. He can't find it. He makes noise, a lot of noise, and where's my uniform? Where's my uniform? Now I'm a dead man. I says, they're going to shoot me if I can't find the uniform. You were looking out of one side of the house or the window. There's English troops are coming in on motorcycles. They're taking the town over. And my mother says, now see, if you would have put the uniform on and would have went out there, what would have happened to you?
He probably would have lost his life.
Yeah, they would have shot him because he was a German soldier. They didn't ask how old he was. They just seen the uniform. That's enough. You know? So the troops came in and took over.
The English troops.
And then my dad and my mother, they said, we gotta get some food. We gotta get some food. There's no other way. So my mother and her sister, my aunt, they went out to the farmers to buy some potatoes and stuff. Nobody would sell them any. They say, oh no, we can't sell. We need it ourselves. They had so much, but they wouldn't sell. So we're going to many farms. Nothing. So they come home, and the next morning we go again. This time my older brother and me go along. And we all had a little bag under our arm, and we just keep on going. All of a sudden we hear some planes flying, some fighter planes. And there's a big building, a 3-story building, standing there. And there were some German soldiers in there, and they were shooting at the planes with their rifles. So stupid. What can they do? They were shooting at the planes. And then the planes noticed that there was some resistance, so they turned around and machine gunned in the building. They kept doing it several times until it was quiet. Then they left, and it was quiet after that. You know. And we were walking to the fields, and when the plane came down on us, my mother says, everybody hit the ground, because the planes are watching us. And we all in the dirt and laying flat. and the plane, you know, and let us go. But
So you weren't hurt, but it was very dangerous.
it was dangerous because if you resisted there, you know.
And you said it was very difficult to find food. Tell about the story about your dad finding the little bit of sugar.
Yeah, his friend came one evening. He says, "John, let's go look for some food in the stores." And my dad says, "Well, the stores are all empty. There's nothing left. They're all ransacked. There's nothing." Well, he says, "Maybe they have something in the basement, you know." Most of them didn't even look in the basement. So he said, "Okay, I'll come along this time." So he goes in the bedroom and takes a pillow, shakes the pillow out of it, takes the casing, and they go. He gets in the store, everything is ransacked, nothing there. So they go downstairs, and my dad is busy. He's shoveling some sugar in his bag. And the guy says, "John, what you got there?" Oh, he says, "I found a bag with brown sugar." Oh, he says, "Take the whole bag. Why do you take her out?" Well, he says, "I don't need it." He says, "I'm going to leave some for other people to have when they come." He says, I have enough sugar, you know. So he takes the sugar, you know, puts it in his bag and puts it on his arm and he starts walking home. And he's about half a block away from home, from Grandma's house. And he hears a voice behind him. He says, "Stop or I'll shoot." He says, "Boy," he says, "I froze and I stopped." You guys turn around. He turned around. It was a German officer holding a handgun right at him, and he says, "What you got there?" He says, "I got some sugar." He says, "Bring it over here and put it down." So he turns around, comes to him and puts it down. He says, "Now you can go." When he comes in, he says, at home, he says, "If I would have refused, you know what would have happened? They would have shot. He would have shot me because nobody saw that, you know." So nobody was asking any questions. It just he's gone. That's it, you know. Nobody knows where he is. You know.
So he almost lost his life over a little bit of sugar.
Right.
And then the war ended, and your family went to a place called Nierenkirchen. Is that right?
The Neuenkirchen, yeah.
Neuenkirchen?
Yeah.
Tell us about what that was like.
Well, that's from there. Before we moved to the Neuenkirchen, we lived in an army camp in the big buildings where the soldiers were. We lived there for about 3 years, and then it was back in 1946. The government said that we're going to give you some places to you can live. We send you to some farmers when they have space, so they'll take you. You have to pay for it, but you have, at least you have a roof over the head. So we got to go to Braunschweig, Neuenkirchen, Braunschweig. And there we stayed, 7 years. I was getting a big boy already. In the meantime, I got to be 15. Now I got to do something with my life. My dad asked me, he said, "You want to learn a trade?" I said, "I got to do something. I can't go on like this." He said, "What would you like?" Well, I said, "I like to be an auto mechanic." Well, he checked around. There was no place. Everything was taken. How about a regular mechanic? You know, like any kind of machine mechanic. Well, it's all taken. But there is one place. He says, a blacksmith. I said, "Yeah, that sounds good." He says, "You're a blacksmith. Your dad was a blacksmith, and his dad before him was a blacksmith. So let's leave it in the family. I'll go as a blacksmith." And that's what I did. I learned the trade, and here I am now as a blacksmith. But you can use it here. And everything we made, we were doing it the old-fashioned way. You heat up the steel, you know, and you got your anvil, and you pound on it, you spread it, you make it, shape it any way you want it, which made a lot of fun. You know, it was hard work, but it was something to do.
And you told me that your father would go into the woods to collect branches.
Yeah, he was working. He was looking for work, and the government supplied work for people that are looking for work and can't find anything. it was scarce because so many countries are sending all the people into Germany, because Germany was the only one that had work. So they all been flooded from other countries. But there's still some, if you're pretty good in things, then they choose you before they do anybody else. You know. And he was working for the government. They were digging trenches in fields where the snow and everything is, and it takes too long in spring to melt the snow away, get the water out of it, so they can plant seed and everything. So they were digging trenches for the drainage of the water.
And that's what your dad did.
And whenever there was a break, whenever the people were having lunch break, my dad would, while he was walking to the woods, he would eat. And then when he gets there, he would look for some dead branches that were laying on the ground, pick those up and made them into a bundle, put them on his bicycle, that's on the way home. Every day he would do that.
And what would you use those branches for?
Well, we use it for burning fire in the house, so my mother can cook. And then in winter, that was you couldn't get enough. That burned too fast. So my dad would go to the farmers, wherever they cut trees down in the woods, they had the tree stumps. And he asked, if he could dig out the stumps so he can use them for firewood. And they said, well, yeah, you can, but you have to make sure that the hole is closed when you're done. Otherwise, you can't do it. I don't want no holes everywhere. So they let us go, and then my dad would go out there in the evening, and then a few times I went along, and we dug the tree stumps out, with a shovel and an axe. No special tools to dig them out like they do now. Like I said, everything was done by hand.
And after a number of years, your older sister met her husband. And tell us about him going to the United States.
Well, he was, after the war, he was stationed at the airfield. He was a guard around the airport. And then they had a chance to come to the States. He was a bachelor at that time. So they got the papers going and he was supposed to leave. And all of a sudden he met my sister. They fell in love, and now they're going to get married. Well, they're going to get married. You're going to the United States, and she's staying here. He says, well, we're going to try to get her along. So they checked in the office there, and they asked around, and they found a way to slow down all the transportation so they can get the papers ready for my sister so they can leave as a married couple. And they did.
And where did they end up in the United States?
They went to Chicago.
And how did your father feel about that after a few months of having her be away?
Well, we were at home, and my father was always thinking and feeling sorry. And when you ask him, what's the matter? Well, he says, my oldest kid is so far away across the ocean in America, and I will never see her again. And this is not life. I don't care what happens. And so the one person says, there's an office here in town. Why don't you go and check it out? Maybe you can go too. Oh, he said, that's not a bad idea. So he went and he told them about us. And they said, well, there's a chance, but the government won't accept all of you at once. Because my oldest brother and my oldest sister were there yet, and so there was the 6 of us, and they wouldn't let us go at once. But then they came out, well, if we send one of them, the oldest kid, let him go by himself. And then they'll accept that, because the United States, they had a lot of work at that time. They can use anybody. So they got the papers ready, and my older brother went. And then 6 months later, my older sister had a chance. So she went to the States. Now the both are there, and my older sister with her family. And they went to my dad and says, now you can go to the office and tell them that you got most of your family there. Now how about getting the rest of us? You know? They said, well, we're going to try. And everything worked out for the best. They got us to go, but it took quite a bit delay, because they had to check out my dad. If he was not a Nazi, if he was legally being a German and all that stuff. So they took him in, they made all those papers. Then in February the 2nd, we left Germany.
And before he left, your father had to go to a doctor to make sure that he
Oh,
was in
yes,
good health.
yes.
And what did the doctor tell him about America?
And the doctor said to him, John, he says, what do you want in the United States? He says, they got work more than we do, but he says, not everything is as nice as you think there is. You know, well, he says, some say it's where milk and honey flows, and that's where I want to go to see if it's true.
That's what your father said.
That's what my father said.
But the doctor
then
was
the doctor
skeptical.
says, no, that's not all. He says, once you get under the wheels, he says, you're never going to get up. The wheel's going to be running over you and you won't be able to get up. And after 6 months, my father said to me, he says, Alfred, why don't you write the doctor a letter and tell him he should not worry about us, because we are the ones that are controlling the wheels. So they're not running over us. He says, we're controlling them.
So your father found success in
Yeah,
America.
he had a job and they were waiting for me with a job. My older brother was working, and the government, his boss said, well, we need some help. Is anybody has any family that's looking for work? And my older brother says, yeah. He says, I need some help. He says, who you got? He says, my younger brother is coming. Well, he says, we need him soon. As soon as he gets here, tell him you can come to work.
So in 1957, you were in Germany, but after your dad got his health clearance, you got on a ship. Tell us about the name of the ship and what that voyage was like coming to.
Oh, the ship, there was a military transport ship. And it was,
It's called the Langfit,
the name was General Langford.
General Langfit.
And we've never been in a ship before. And our washroom was way up in a point, I don't know what they call it, in a point, they had the toilet seats on one side, on both sides, and they would get to the point like that. And the sinks, they were for washing your hands, they were right at the end there. It's when we had water, we used to have a little bowl with water, and then you wash your hands and your face. And we put some water in there. By the time we got done washing, there was no water left, because it was all spilled out of it. Because the ship was going up in the waves and pow, come down.
So a stormy sea.
Oh, that was a bad sea.
12 days it took you.
They had, it took us 12 days. Normally it was 9 days, but it took us 12. We had some bad sea that some ships were coming by, smaller ones. They would come by, and all of a sudden they would disappear. The waves were so high, they just disappear. And then we looked at, oh, the ship is gone. Oh, then it comes up again. And then it goes down and up and down.
When you finally got to New York, talk about what it was like. What did the ship look like on top of deck?
The top of the ship, the railing was all twisted.
From the storms?
We had a couple of small booths up there, like tool sheds. That was not there no more. It was all torn down from the bad sea. And my younger brother was sick from beginning on the ship, and the women were stationed in a midship way on the bottom, and we were up front. And then there was the word was out that nobody is to leave the ship. It was a bad sea, you're gonna get hurt. Well, we had to climb some steep steps to get upstairs. My dad always found a way to go and check on my younger brother because he was sick. And the doctor was there, and then he asked the doctor. The doctor says, well, he's in God's hand. Your son is in God's hand. If he does not pull through by himself, he says, there's nothing I can do. He says, I did all I can. Now it's up to God.
When you finally arrived, talk about looking at the Statue of Liberty and what you thought.
Oh, when we came to New York, they put on the loudspeakers. Now everybody go on the left side and look at the statue. The Statue of Liberty. And everybody was standing there and went, oh, was that huge, that statue. I could never believe that it was such a big statue.
And what were your impressions of New York City?
Well, everything was big and a lot. All the traffic and people were walking up and down the streets and cars and taxis, and we've never seen anything like it. On the way back, we went in a cab, coming home, just leaving Chicago, go to the south side where my sister, they had an apartment for us. We were going down Lakeshore Drive, and this man, he says, look at all the traffic. Where did all those cars come from? So everybody's coming, and I've never seen anything like that.
So it was a lot to get used to. So you took a train from New York to Chicago?
Yes, we did.
And when you got to Chicago, who was there waiting for you?
Well, my oldest sister and my brother, they came to pick us up.
And you all found work right away?
They were waiting on me.
They were waiting
On
for
the way
you.
home,
The job was
in
waiting
the
for you.
taxi, my brother says, Alfred, he says, you wanna work? I said, sure I wanna work. I says, why? He says, tomorrow you come with me and we're gonna go to work together. It didn't take long. A couple months later, my dad was working with us too. So all three of us. And then in '58, I made my driver's license, and then we bought a car, and then I drove the three of us to work and back and everything. Mm-hmm.
And so what were your impressions of this new country?
Well, it was like they said, milk and honey floats. It is true, but you gotta help them. You gotta help yourself. You just can't wait. You know?
A lot of hard work pays off.
That's the truth. Yes. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And you told me that it was a land of opportunity and a land of freedom.
Yes, it was freedom, all right. Could do and buy anything you want if you save the money and eat what you want and when you want it. You know. So that was a land of opportunity. You know.
Thank you. That is a great story.
Okay, thank
Thanks,
you.
Al. Are there any other stories that you want your children to know? Children and grandchildren?
Anyway, with my first wife, and she developed a high blood pressure and always headaches, and she passed away. And then my son got married, and they moved to Minnesota because his wife was from Minnesota. And I worked volunteering at the hospital to spend some time. My daughter-in-law said, Dad, you can do some good. Instead of sitting around, sitting watching TV, you can volunteer at the hospital and help people and this and that. I said, okay, I'll give it a try. So I help people, but then later on I helped myself too.
And how's that?
I found myself a wife. His name Barb, they're sitting right next to me here.
Hello. And how did you meet?
Well, she was going down the hall, and I was walking, and she's mumbling something, and I says, what's the matter? Is there anything I can help you? Oh, she says, I don't know. I says, I got a fish pond in the backyard, and it was fall. The leaves are falling in, and I'm trying to figure out how to cover it to keep the leaves out of the water. I says, oh, it's no problem. She says, your husband can help you. Oh, she says, I'm not married. And that's where it started. Then
That's
we
where you
started
started.
dating, yeah. We started dating, and then one day the last day we were, I picked her up for a date, and I says, "Do you think of getting married?" I'm not the type just to visit and have a friend. And I said, "I want to get married and have a home and everything." I said, "How would you want to get married?" "Oh," I says, "I don't know." The next time I asked her, I said, "Would you marry me?" I says, "Take all your time you need, but don't let me wait too long."
And then she must have said yes.
And then a week later, 2 weeks later, we were going out, took her out, we're going out to eat, and she sits in there and she says, "Yes, yes, 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 yes." I said, "Yes, yes, what?" She says, "I'll marry you." I said, all right, all right. Well, in the meantime, my son has his own family. He's got 2 grandchildren for me, and they're twins.
How very thoughtful of him.
And they're not.
How old are the twins, Al?
They're 11, you know, and they love me very much.
You know, it might be just kind of fun to tell your children and grandchildren how we came to know each other and to tell this story. So it was from my husband's mother, who was at St. Benedict's short-term stay. So Pat connected with Barb at St. Benedict's short-term stay.
Oh, she was a beautiful person.
You got talking at lunch about how you wanted your children and grandchildren to know this story.
Yeah,
And that's how we came to be
Yes.
together.
yeah. That was your mother-in-law. Yeah,
So,
And
yeah.
Pat was always so enthused about the story that she was asked if we could have it.
Right away, when she heard that I speak a different language, and I said, "Where from?" "From Germany." She says, "Boy," "I'd like to hear more about you," and that's how it started. You know, without her, we would have never gotten it. You know, thanks to her.
that was my assignment. She
Ah,
gave
see?
it to me,
Yeah,
so.
No, I want to thank you
Thank you.
and your
Jim
friend here.
McAllister, yes.
Yeah.
Thanks, thanks. I think we're good.
This is me. That's my dad. This is my mother, and that's my younger brother. And that's the ship that we came on. That's a General Langford. And those are some pictures of Germany here, see, and back there is Bremerhaven. We left Bremerhaven. And this is my uncle. That he was the one that almost got killed if he would have went out there. He was only 15 at that time. Yeah. His name is Adam. Oh, those are my twins. Yeah.
Your son's children,
And what are their names, Al?
yeah. Their
What are their
names.
names?
Christina and Dolan.
And here,
Yeah, they were tiny.